Welcome to another deep dive, and you guys know I love a good mystery.
Oh, yeah.
And we've got a good one today. We're going back to the 1960s
Good.
to Ohio, where over the course of a year, a string of shootings terrorized the city of Columbus.
Wow.
3 out of the 4 victims died.
Oh, my God.
And despite a survivor and a composite sketch, the case remains unsolved to this day.
It really is like a puzzle,
Yeah.
with some pieces seemingly missing, yet others that just don't seem to fit.
Yeah.
We're going to try and make sense of it all based on excerpts from this Wikipedia article,
Right.
looking at the victims, the timeline, and the efforts to catch the killer.
Okay, so let's set the scene. Between 1965 and 1966, 4 shootings occurred in and around Columbus. What's really strange is the variety of victims. We're talking gas station attendants, a World War II vet, even an assistant professor.
Wow.
Not exactly your typical pattern for a serial killer, right?
That's what makes this case so intriguing.
Yeah.
Were these truly random targets, or was there some hidden connection the police overlooked? Let's delve into who these victims were.
The first victim was Raymond Sigler, a 48-year-old gas station attendant.
Okay.
It's September of 65, and he's ambushed at work, shot twice.
Wow.
But incredibly, he survives.
Oh.
He played dead. And that quick thinking saved his life.
Wow.
Yeah.
So Sigler's testimony becomes crucial for investigators. Not only did he survive to describe the attacker, but the fact that he was targeted at his gas station, that sets a pattern for the next 2 murders.
Sadly, just a month later, we have Chester Joseph Scowden, another gas station attendant, only 19 years old, and a one-time Golden Gloves champion. That's a pretty prestigious amateur boxing competition.
Oh, wow.
He's found dead at a station, shot twice with a .25 caliber pistol. His wallet and money are missing, leading police to suspect robbery.
The robbery angle seems plausible at first.
Yeah.
But it's worth noting that .25 caliber pistols were quite common in the 1960s. Relatively inexpensive and easy to conceal, they weren't typically the weapon of choice for seasoned criminals looking to make a big score.
Right.
This detail could suggest something more personal was at play.
Oh.
And interestingly, some people who knew Scowden believe he might have known his attacker.
So, maybe not a random robbery after all. Then, just a few weeks later, we have another gas station murder, this time Claude F. Quisenberry, a 41-year-old World War II veteran. He was awarded a Purple Heart for his service.
Wow.
Again, he's found shot dead with, you guessed it, a .25 caliber pistol.
The use of the same caliber weapon in both Scowden and Quisenberry's murders, this is what really raises a red flag for the police. This points towards a possible serial killer.
Yeah.
And suddenly they have a much bigger problem on their hands.
Yeah. It's like they were piecing together a puzzle, but then the pieces stopped making sense. Because the next murder is where things get really interesting and tragic. We have Lauren E. Bollinger, a 40-year-old assistant professor in aeronautical engineering. He's found dead in his office building, this time shot 5 times.
Now, Bollinger's murder is a major departure from the previous pattern.
Right.
Not only was he not a gas station attendant, but the location and the sheer number of shots suggest a possible shift in the killer's MO.
Yeah.
Was this a personal vendetta?
Right.
Was the killer becoming bolder?
Yeah.
Maybe even enjoying the thrill of it all?
And again, robbery seems like a weak motive. Bollinger wasn't known to carry much money. It's like the killer was sending a message, but what was it?
This is where the police's initial focus on robbery as the sole motive may have hindered their investigation.
Yeah.
Were they too quick to dismiss other possibilities?
That's a good question. So, with these puzzling murders on their hands, how did the police approach the case? What avenues did they explore? Well, they had Raymond Sigler, the survivor of the first attack. He gave them a description of his attacker, and from that, the police were able to release a composite sketch to the public.
Right, and that sketch becomes a key piece of the puzzle,
Yeah.
giving us a glimpse into who this killer might be. It describes a young white man between 30 and 35 years old,
Okay.
about 5'9", weighing somewhere between 170 and 200 pounds.
Okay.
But here's the interesting detail.
Okay.
The sketch also mentions a possible vehicle,
What is it?
a gray 1960 or 1961 Chevrolet Corvette.
A Corvette. That seems like a pretty flashy car for someone trying to stay under the radar, especially back then.
Yeah.
Did owning a Corvette in the 60s say something about a person?
It certainly did.
Yeah.
Corvettes in the early 60s were symbols of status and success,
Oh, wow.
not typically associated with your average criminal.
Right.
This detail makes you wonder if the killer was trying to project an image, maybe even taunting the police with his audacity.
It's like he wanted to be seen, even if it was just through the image of his car. So with the sketch out there, the police had a description, they had a possible car, and they had ballistics linking at least 3 of the murders.
Right.
You'd think they'd be closing in on a suspect, but
But the case remained frustratingly cold.
yeah.
And that brings us to another aspect of the investigation that raises some questions.
Okay.
The police's decision to publicly deny any connection between these murders and another unsolved case in the area, the murder of Elizabeth Davenport.
So there was another unsolved murder in Columbus around the same time. What was the connection, or at least the suspected connection, that the police were so quick to dismiss?
Well, the details are a bit murky.
Yeah.
The sources we have don't delve deeply into the Davenport case, only mentioning the police's denial of a link. It's possible the police had specific reasons for ruling out a connection, perhaps based on evidence or witness testimony we're not privy to. But it does make you wonder if their focus on certain details, like the robbery angle, caused them to overlook other potential connections.
It's like they got fixated on a certain narrative and maybe missed the bigger picture. But let's go back to the theories surrounding the Columbus murders. We talked about robbery, though that seems unlikely, and the possibility that the killer was evolving and getting a thrill from these crimes. What other explanations have been considered?
Well, there's speculation surrounding Bollinger's personal life.
Okay.
Some reports suggest he might have been gay,
Okay.
and this was considered a possible motive, particularly given the societal biases of the 1960s.
That's a sad reminder of how prejudices can impact investigations. But is there any actual evidence to suggest Bollinger's personal life played a role in his murder?
Unfortunately, the sources we have are limited in that regard. They only mention the speculation without providing concrete evidence. It's important to remember that this was a time when homosexuality was highly stigmatized, and such rumors could easily spread without any factual basis.
So we have to be careful not to jump to conclusions. But it does add another layer of complexity to the case. We have the seemingly random gas station murders, then this professor who stands out from the others with rumors swirling around his personal life.
Right.
It's all very confusing.
It is, and that's part of what makes this case so fascinating. We're left with more questions than answers.
It's like we're missing a crucial piece of the puzzle that would tie everything together.
Right.
So what happens next? The sketch is out, the theories are swirling, but the killer is still out there.
And that's where the trail seemingly goes cold.
Right.
Despite their best efforts, the police never made an arrest.
Wow.
And the case remains unsolved to this day.
So we have these brutal murders, a community living in fear, a killer who seems to vanish without a trace. It's almost like something out of a movie.
It does have that cinematic quality, doesn't it? But it's important to remember that these were real people, real lives lost.
Right.
And a real mystery that continues to haunt those who were affected by it.
What about the theory that Skowden, the young Golden Gloves champion, might have known his attacker?
Yeah.
We touched upon that earlier, but could that be the missing link? It's a compelling theory, especially considering that some people close to Skowden believed it to be true. Could it be that the first murder was personal and the others were an attempt to cover it up, to create the illusion of a random serial killer?
That's one possibility. Or perhaps Skowden's murder, while personal, somehow triggered something in the killer, leading him down a darker path. Maybe he discovered a taste for violence that he couldn't control.
It's chilling to think about, but it fits with the idea of the killer evolving, becoming more daring with each attack. First the gas stations, then a university professor shot multiple times in his own office. It does seem like the crimes escalate in terms of both risk and aggression.
Exactly. And that's why this case continues to fascinate true crime enthusiasts. The unsolved mystery, the unanswered questions, the glimpse into a dark period in Columbus's history, it all adds up to a story that continues to grip our imaginations.
But it's more than just a captivating story. These were real people whose lives were tragically cut short. Their families and friends are still left with so many unanswered questions.
Absolutely, and I think that's something important to keep in mind as we delve into these cases. There's the thrill of the mystery, the puzzle to be solved, but there's also the human cost, the pain and suffering left behind.
And sometimes, I guess, those mysteries stay unsolved. But maybe there's still hope. Technology has come a long way since the 1960s.
You're right. Advances in DNA analysis and forensic science could potentially shed new light on this case. Imagine if they were able to find new evidence, re-examine old clues with fresh eyes, maybe even identify the killer after all these years.
It would be incredible, not just for the families of the victims, but for everyone who's been captivated by this story for decades. It would prove that even the coldest cases can sometimes thaw, that justice can prevail even after time has passed.
It's a reminder that we should never give up hope, and that sometimes the truth is waiting to be uncovered, hidden just beneath the surface of what we think we know.
So, as we wrap up our deep dive into the Columbus murders, I think the biggest takeaway is that sometimes the most compelling mysteries are the ones that remain unsolved. But they also remind us that history is full of these untold stories, these glimpses into the darkness that can teach us so much about ourselves and the world around us.
Exactly. And they challenge us to think critically, to question assumptions, and to never stop seeking the truth, no matter how elusive it may seem.
So, to our listeners out there, I leave you with this. What do you think happened? Do you have any theories of your own? Keep those gears turning because who knows, maybe you'll be the one to finally crack the code of the Columbus murders. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and as always, thanks for joining us on the deep dive.